I'll tell you what, man.
Lovely evening to you, Dennis.
Oh,
You're looking marvelous.
Marvelous. It's so good to be back.
And tomorrow we will actually be together for the first time in about a year.
A year.
Which is exciting.
So I can't wait to shake your middle toes and your middle foot.
Well, you can.
So good to see you.
There are limits to where you can touch me.
It's too bad that you will never be able to wear a turtleneck.
Well, turtlenecks they're too suffocating anyway, in my opinion. But then again, I don't live in super cold climate. Or try not to.
Not super cold. I guess I had a beer, but I lost it.
Where'd my beer go?
Where'd my beer go? We're drinking George Killian's Irish Red. And there you are in the Deep South. Whoosh.
In Deep South. Yep. All right. Calm down. How has your week been?
My week has been good.
Yeah.
It's been good. I got my sports car back.
Nice.
May have told you.
Yep. Well, you told me that you had one last episode, which is news to me.
There was a long story about losing the keys and having to make the keys.
Yep.
And then the tire went on fire. You remember this. The brakes went on fire. Yep. All that. So I put the money in. It's $6,700. Now I have a loan. Listen to this loan. Mm-hmm. Borrow the money from the bank, and I'm on a credit line that's worth $21,000.
Okay.
And the security, in this case, is my home. Mm-hmm. And when I take money out of it, the only payment that registers is the interest payment. I don't have to pay on the principal until I would never sell the house.
Okay.
And this is a contract that re-ups every year under certain rates and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So that's the coolest loan. So that means that I'm going to be making car payments for this sports car that is driving, I'd say, pretty well. If I know that was my can opener, my beer opener, smashing against the table. But it drove reasonably well, though I'm having some trouble. I'm going to go take it out and talk to the mechanic. Mm-hmm. Because I said to him when I shook his hand for working on my car, I said, this car is partly yours now. And he looked me square in the eye and he said, yeah, man. His name is Tanner. That's real tall, slender dude, little goatee.
You're meaning when you say this is partly yours, as in it was, this is your responsibility, your creation. You've helped build part of it.
He's part owner, meaning I just gave him $7,000, and now he basically co-owns my car. My total loan, is to pay him off. So he's my new partner.
Right.
And when he showed me the card, and he said, "Is it running?" We were inside. He says, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, it's running." He comes outside. He listens, and he said, "Oh, that reminds me." And he opens the passenger side door, and he gets down on his knees on the pavement and leans underneath the passenger seat and is under there. And suddenly the hum of the engine changes from to and I said, "What are you doing down there?" And he said, "I'm adjusting the electronic fuel ignition."
What?
I said, from inside the car? He said, "Yeah, there's a little gray knob here, and I had it tuned for blah, 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 and I just want to make sure I got it for when it's warm." And he tuned it, and you could hear the different hum of the engine.
Whoa.
Now that I know this.
Now you're just going to be going down the highway fiddling with that knob, and you just, whatever could happen.
So I'll tell you a story. We want to come back to So I was in a car with a wealthy man, who was a donor.
Who was a boner? He had a boner.
And a donor and a benefactor?
Yes.
And when you put those two together, sometimes they're called bonefactors.
Yes.
But he's an old man. And we get in his car. I mean, he's 76, I guess. We're in his car, and he's old, and he gets in, there's seatbelt buckled up, we're moving. And he reaches down with his right hand by the middle of the seat, between the two seats, and he comes up with a stick that's about 30 inches long, maybe 28 inches long, and it's got a rubber end on it, and it's slender. And he uses it to turn up and down the radio so he doesn't have to lean over, much to your point about now that I know the electronic fuel ignition calibrator is a knob that's where my head will be. It might as well be up my ass. But this guy pulls out this stick, and as he's got the stick out and we're going down the highway, he's not watching the highway at all.
He's just poking at
watching what he's doing with the stick.
What?
And I said almost audibly, of course I could speak somewhat loudly and he wouldn't know if I was turned my head toward the window, this sucker's going to die. Yep. And sure enough, years later, I got the news from a friend of a friend, and he said, Jack passed. And I said, that good old guy. I was in his office, and he said, what are you here for? And I said, blah, blah, blah. He said, so you know this guy? And I said, I know him. He said, I trust him. I'm glad he introduced you to me. How much money do you need?
Right.
And I said, well, if I left here with $25,000, I would be so happy. And he wrote me a check for $25,000.
Yes.
Reached in his drawer and went through what appeared to be 7 or 8 checkbooks. Let's see. Oh, this one, okay. And he wrote it. And old Jack, but guess how he died?
Was he driving a car?
He was.
And
he was.
Was there a long stick impaled in his chest? Jesus.
No, nothing that macabre. Nothing quite that macabre. You went a little dark on me there. I was having a fun minute, Jack. I wasn't thinking about being impaled. I was thinking about he died of a heart attack because he was pissed off that his stick wouldn't find the right radio station.
Right.
I also think that just before you
did he
died,
just have short little Tyrannosaurus arms or something? Why?
He was a little guy. He was a short man.
And he couldn't reach the radio without leaning all the way over.
Well, no. Well, without leaning, yes, he was short,
right.
And he had little arms.
Okay.
And it was good that he was sat up a little higher because he was able to sit on his tail,
right?
And that made it a little higher.
When he was chasing after his prey, yes.
He was a ferret of an old man, frankly.
A ferret of an old.
Poor Jack. He was a great guy. But here's the story too.
Yeah.
I could right now go over here in my office, and I could show you the gift that Jack gave me, which is a notebook cover for ruled paper that you would take to a business meeting to take notes.
Sure.
And on the cover is a engraved kind of soft cover is a embossed figure of a bear.
Okay.
And the name of his product, which I believe is Waterworks, Bear Parts or whatever, is there. I still have it. I remember the day he gave it to me when he gave me all that money. He gave me that as a token of his appreciation. So it's nice to have something from that guy. And this was 50 years ago.
50, wow. Well.
That's a long time.
That's
a half a century.
It's half a century, man. That's
whoa.
That's a long time.
But anyway.
It's like
here's to Jack. Here's to Jack.
Here's to Jack. Raise the glass. Raise the glass to Jack.
Jack and the stick.
Not the beanstalk.
Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Jack, what the fuck are you doing with that stick?
Nailed it.
Picture him jumping over the stick. Uh-oh, slipped. Oh. Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Jack, what the fuck are you doing?
Look at the road, Jack. Stick? Look at the road. What are you doing, Jack?
Hey, there's a song there. Look at the road, Jack.
Exactly.
What the fuck you doing with that stick? No, that's not right.
No, that's the wrong second line.
I'll come back to that. I got to get the automatopoeia. So I saw a Mel Brooks documentary. I want you to find it, post it, and watch portions of it. And the clip that I want you to include, of many, I'm sure, once you see this marvelous documentary, is when he's being interviewed in his office. And after 3 or 4 questions to make a point, he jumps up on his desk, dances and sings, and does an entire song like Frank Sinatra to make a point in his story.
Wow.
And the interviewer and the camera guy are just silent watching him. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It's wild. He seems like the kind of guy that is so the identity of being an entertainer is so deep in his soul.
He never stopped. He never stopped.
He can't turn it off.
He's being interviewed on a talk show. And to this day, to this moment, this is an unusual thing to see. This is another clip maybe you can find where he's on a talk show and just two guys in a chair, the typical format where the people get animated and stuff. And this is what he's doing when he's telling a story. He's walking around in circle with the interviewer in his empty chair in the center of walking a circle, acting out three different parts, and of course, breaking into a song this time, a full-throated version of a Dean Martin song.
Wow.
That he does the whole song. And when you understand what he is, in fact, he's a musical man,
right.
A musical genius. His latest endeavor is that he's got a Broadway show that he's written, producing, and directing on down Broadway. That is Young Frankenstein.
Right. Yep.
Have you know about this?
I've heard. The
musical?
No, I've not heard of the musical. Is happening now?
Soon to come out.
2020.
And you remember in that movie that the dance on the stage when Young Frankenstein and the monster are dancing on the stage dressed in tuxedos, putting on the Ritz, and when it comes time for Frankenstein to yell, he goes, "Hey on the hood!" and he's stopping. And Gene Wilder, it's one of the best things in the world. From that moment is where Mel Brooks said, why not do the whole show like that? If I could get him in a tuxedo and dancing,
right.
Why not turn it into a musical? And this is what he's done.
He has had a very successful career making people laugh.
He's created the entire galactic environment for smart and spontaneous comedy, and actually a boundary breaker. Who allows his actors just such a wide stretch of dexterity to do what they want to do. So many stories of people doing lines and just going with the character, whatever. And of course, he loves that.
Right.
We owe a lot to him.
I saw a documentary. I might have mentioned it on this program about the making of the movie Spaceballs, which he created.
Was that his?
Yeah, and it's a parody of Star Wars, and he says it's the one that is most common for someone to walk up to him on the street and say, "Hey, I love that movie," which is crazy.
Really?
because he has such a vast oeuvre of work. But when they were interviewing all of the actors and the other writers and stuff, they all said that Mel Brooks is a real stickler. Like he knows what he wants the thing to look like, and you're going to keep doing takes until it's right, which is what people say is what you hear said about all the best directors is they're perfectionists and they want it to be exactly perfect. Yet still allowing that improv action.
That's quite the stretch, because his reality unfolding is also organic.
Right.
And he may not know in take 3 exactly what he wanted back in take 1.
Right, exactly.
But now after 2 takes, he gets it too, organically, because now it's happening. It's flesh, it's blood, it's people, it's intonation, it's the light is darker or lighter. So we're really here now. So where does this go? That's
right. Exactly. It's not that he knew what he wanted from the page when he woke up that morning to start shooting. It's that he knows when it's right. He says yes, that's it. And
he will eventually even know what he wants. But the number of iconic scenes from his movies that are just etched into the memory of the country is quite a tribute. And they interview him and Carl Reiner who is also in his 90s.
Yeah, they are. They've committed a lot of crimes together. Those two.
The 10,000-year-old man, which was all ad lib. All ad lib.
I don't know that I know that one.
He would. It's funny. He comes out and Mel Brooks is dressed in a cape and an odd-shaped hat, and he purports to be 10,000 years old. And he's interviewed, and the questions that he's asked, he has no idea.
Right, of course.
He has no idea. And what Kyle Reiner is trying to do is to stump him, which he can never do. And what Mel Brooks is trying to do is to make Kyle Reiner laugh and break out of character. And so
that could be entertaining.
It's this chemistry. And when you know that, and you listen to the question, and you hear the answers, and you know that, it just creates this so funny thing where he's so quick, and they're comfortable just going out there and doing that. And that is the predecessor of talk show hosts who people come out and they really don't know what the interviewer is going to ask them. I mean, if they got a book or movie out, obviously, but
right.
It can go in a lot of different directions. That's not particularly scripted; it's organic.
Right. Totally unlike this podcast where we've written it down every single line weeks in advance.
Fastidious script writer.
Yes.
I try to follow your every nuance, of course.
That's just what I wrote for you to say. Speaking of documentaries, or documentaries, as you could say, there's... The other day, I was watching this thing, and also to sell you more on Netflix. It's a series. I'm not exactly sure what the name of it is, but it's about Monty Python, and it's about it's interviewing them. It's probably 10 years ago when they were all more alive and cogent than they are now. Yeah, but it was about the what it was like doing Monty Python, and they talk about each other and about how each one had certain skills and weaknesses and stuff, and just it's really interesting, and about how they really had no idea if the flying circus was going to be a thing at all. Like they found it hilarious, and they had a couple friends that thought it was funny, but they didn't really know. And it wasn't until like around after they had put out like 3 or so episodes until they started getting some letters back from people telling them that they were being funny and edgy and stuff. And I love how they mentioned that when you're putting something out that the younger generation likes because it's a little bit subversive or whatever, but the older generation is clicking their tongue in disapproval, that's a good sign that you might be actually onto something. And anyway, it's all interspersed with the actual skits, and which are just hilarious. Oh, and the other thing they do is they interview a bunch of famous British and a couple American comedians as asking like, well, what was your favorite Monty Python sketch? And they're just like, well, geez, that's such a hard question to answer, but I can name 3 or 4 for you that I love.
Right.
And just things about how the origins of how skits came about, and how the lumberjack song, they just didn't know how to get out of a particular skit where there was a hairdresser who they didn't know how to cut hair, and they'd figured out, well actually I always didn't want to be a hairdresser, I wanted to be a lumberjack, and then they go off into that song. But it's good stuff. So anyway, that's
it's
entertaining
nice
to watch.
To be able to just let go, just let it go, just do what you want to do and just let it go. Wow.
Are you talking about retirement?
No. Those guys.
You've really let yourself go. Okay.
To have their life to be doing that creative thing, and anything went. I mean,
yeah.
And the collaboration, it truly was Monty Python. It wasn't. It was them as a group. All that connectedness.
Right. It wasn't one particular one of them. It wasn't that. I mean, it wasn't that.
It was all of them together.
Right. it wasn't like that. They had that sort of McCartney-Lennon magic where they could get together and be better because of each other. But yes,
right. Well, and because there were enough of them, the intertwining of the characters and the different skits and stuff were doing the math on it. I mean, there were so many possibilities in terms of where they went and how they riffed. It was great.
And they talked about how particularly the dressing up as women and just being like housewives sitting on a park bench talking. That really bothered the older generation. The older generation was like, they're clearly men. Why are they dressed as women? Anyway, but they did talk, like you said, that they just had carte blanche to do whatever they wanted. But they did talk a lot about how they were pushing the envelope on the censors. How they
sure.
And this was back when on primetime. I don't know exactly when it was broadcast, but on primetime British TV, they had topless women in some of their sketches, and it was just as well as all of Terry Jones's drawing, because a lot of their drawing was of naked people. Anyway, that it was fun. Plus, like that the way they edited it is very nice, because it's a little bit of talking to people about what the events that occurred, and then they show a skit or part of a skit, and so you get that.
That's nice.
Yeah, I recommend it.
You posted a link.
I will find a link.
Where would that be?
That would be at Google it your own fucking self. No, I'm sorry. That would be great. That would be pleasant. That would be already everything prepared for you at happyhour.fm/046, because that's where the show notes are for this episode, because we are on episode 46.
So that's the code. I wondered what those numbers meant.
Yes, I explained it. God, it was supposed to be secret. One other Python thing is some follow up from last episode, where you talked about seeing a thing where they were launching a YouTube channel and they were upset that they weren't getting paid for this channel.
Yeah, right.
And I saw that was a YouTube video on their channel where they were talking about that. But I got there because when I searched for it, it was linked to from an article. This is like from 8 or 9 years ago, whenever this happened, and the article talked about how after they released their YouTube channel, their DVD sales skyrocketed. Oh, because they already people were ripping, were sharing their skits on YouTube, and so part of this pitch of this video was, look, these people are sharing our videos. We're going to share the high quality, actual legit versions of them, and it's helped their sales. They made a bunch of money on DVDs.
That's good.
Which is why, like I mentioned before, back when YouTube was nascent, they had a bunch of copyright complaints because people were uploading episodes of The Daily Show to YouTube, and Viacom, the owner of The Daily Show, was throwing lawyers at the problem. And nowadays you can see pretty much everything that happens on late night TV is on YouTube the next morning, because they've realized that it doesn't hurt them. It's not like the people that are going to watch during the regular time late at night aren't the ones that are watching YouTube. It's a different audience, and it creates more of, because what you want is for your late night talk show person to be a water cooler subject, right?
Yeah.
Something where people, hey, did you see that Jimmy Fallon thing last night or whatever? So
did you see Leno last night, right? Right. So I just, this is going to date this podcast, but who cares? Yeah. We got to talk about what happened in Iowa last night.
What the fuck?
We got to talk about what happened in Iowa last night. They still don't have Iowa results. So this is the glimpse. They show a camera, and the newscaster is in a gym. And in the gym, there's all these groups of people, and they're grouped together by who they like. So when you walk into the gym, if you're lucky enough not to have childcare, right, that you don't have to worry about childcare, you don't have a job in the evening, and you've got 4 or 5 hours to spend out on as it turns out, a pretty nice day this time. but you've got to have that type of a schedule. You do see a few people with kids and whatnot, but they go and they show up and they say, I'm going to stand here because, right off the bat, I got to tell you, I like Pete. I like Joe Biden. And a lot of people go over there. And if there's 100 people in the gym, then you've got to have 15% viability. So you have to have 15 people in that corner or you're not viable.
This system sounds like a system. This sounds like a system that was designed by shepherds or people that control livestock.
Listen to this. When and then if you're not viable, if you're only 12, right? And you're standing around, and you're standing around, and you're standing around, and you're standing around.
Are you like waving at other people saying, hey, you come over here?
You're just waving, and people come by, and they say, hey, come on over here with Joe Biden, and people don't come, and people don't go. And then somebody comes up to you and says, look, dude, Joe Biden ain't going to make it here. Come over with us.
Yeah.
We're with Pete. He's a centrist.
We got full-size Snicker bars over here.
We can count you tonight. Come on over. And the guy goes over. And so when they go over, the Pete Buttigieg, they're viable now because they got over 15, right? So this is what happens. Because they hit the threshold, they're not allowed to move anymore. They're not allowed for somebody from another campaign to come over and give them a speech. For Elizabeth Warren to show up herself, I don't think you can at that point, no candidate. But whoever to be able to talk to people and say, you need to come to, and they say, you've just convinced us. That's what a caucus is. We're talking. You've convinced us. I'm going to come with you because I've changed my mind. Oh, the rules say I can't leave. You're stuck there for hours and hours. That's a new rule.
Is it only the 100 people that were allowed in and no one else could come in? The
100 people who in the prescribed precinct who showed up. There were likely 300 people invited, but 100 showed up. And the volume of attendance wasn't anywhere close to 2008. It was more like 2016. And here's the thing. People are saying, well, doesn't that bode well for the general election if they aren't at Barack Obama's level of 2008?
No.
So, in a place that's 92% white, and the average age, blah, 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 so unlike the rest of America. And by the way, this quirky, crazy thing that everybody says, I like their judgment, it's been fun, but now all of a sudden, they get it wrong?
I just had an idea. You should try and get into the caucus an impersonator for your candidate. So you could have an Elizabeth Warren impersonator come up there and be like, talking in her voice, in her cadence, and be like, come over here, we're going to solve all the world's problems, we're going to tax the rich, we're going to get rid of... And
we got to hire Kate McKinnon.
Yeah.
From SNL. Then we're set.
Exactly. So
we're set.
Wouldn't that be great? Like the candidates aren't allowed in, but this is not the candidate. Someone...
Wait a minute. Why not Elvis?
Right. Well...
Why doesn't Elvis show up?
He could.
How about Paul Newman?
Or just look.
Shows up.
Find any beloved celebrity impersonator, and have them. You don't want a Bill Cosby exactly, but somebody.
How about Rich Little as Johnny Carson? You know this?
No.
Oh God! This has got to be a road note here. Rich Little as Johnny Carson.
Okay.
You won't believe it.
Okay. Anyway, continue. So after everyone is in the gym and they find their location and they stake out their spot, and
so you can only grow. You can't shrink.
Are you not allowed to?
You can only grow.
Are you allowed to offer? Are you allowed to offer cookies to people that come over to your?
I don't. And so it's all the candidates spend. Okay. Millions of dollars that booms that economy.
Right.
Millions and millions in ads and wealth and corporate and millions and millions. And the Democratic Party is spending millions and millions for organization, millions and millions and millions, right? And they got it wrong. And it is the most non-representative. It's like, what in the fuck could you be thinking Why don't we now forget about the idea that we all vote in the same fucking day?
Right.
That you could have a 6-month period where they campaign, but nobody's ahead of anybody. Just show up and vote on one fucking day over the course of an entire time zone. Give everybody the fucking day off,
right?
So we can do this thing that's called our country. But no, forget that. Well, at any rate, Super Tuesday, that's where you start.
Yeah,
Super Tuesday.
This whole idea
Don't give me fucking Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. They're not fucking representative. Go to a Super Tuesday. 4 regional events. Boom, bang, bam, boom. This electoral college thing. Kiss my ass, electoral college. Those motherfucking framers of the Constitution had no fucking idea what that would end up doing in a country this populous.
Right.
That requires a constitutional amendment. Mark my words, boy.
It feels like you're determining who wins by like looking at a tray full of ants and figuring out which where all the ants are, and like I know that they're in theory thinking voters, but it's just so arbitrary and like you say, underrepresented. And
well, let me I got a story to tell you. Go ahead though.
No.
Cut you off. So I knew this political guy. I remember his name for things go on, and he was brilliant. And I met him, and there's another story behind how that, but we'll save that for another time. But he was an election guy, and he was really good at it.
Is this Karl Rove?
And I said, no, it was a local guy in Michigan.
Okay.
And I said, it was a couple days before the election, and I said, so his name was Gary. So I said, Gary, what's going on now? He said, well, now we're done doing everything we can do. And we know that what we have is a great number of people who are in different tribes or different herds all across the landscape, and they are poised to move. And they have 2 days to do so. There's nothing else we can do. There's no more literature. It's going to happen and within 24 hours, blah, blah, blah. And he said, so I want you to picture a herd of deer. Mm-hmm. And the deer are grazing, and the deer are listening, and they're looking up, but nobody's moving. And then something happens to make them move. And some of the deer in one particular location move. And when those deer move, the entire herd, for the most part, goes with them. Mm-hmm. And there's tributaries of that. So in a large herd, there may be a main herd that goes and another herd that goes this way. Mm-hmm. But it's all about those guys to see the herd leaders where they're going. And you never know who they are. You think, but it's all the. But that gave me the best image mm-hmm. I've ever had of what happens in the final moments when the surge of the workers and everything takes place, and people walk in there and they know by then who they're jazzed for, and they walk over and they go to their corner, right? But let's say that you're going in there and you're saying, you know what, I like to lean left, so Bernie or Warren, man, Bernie's got the juice, I like Bernie. Mm-hmm. But then there's this conservative side of me that says that's crazy, wild shit, you're never going to get the Senate to approve that shit. You need to be more moderate. Klobuchar, whoa, experienced, or Pete, charismatic, whatever. And so you go in and you go over and you go with Bernie when there's a big crowd, right? The Bernie bros. Mm-hmm. And then somebody comes over from Pete's camp and talks to him about coming over, and at the same time the person's bumped, and so it's Amy Klobuchar's folks. And when Klobuchar's folks come over, they say, look, you can go with a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but I've got experience and I've never lost, and I brought together everybody, and I brought together coalitions, and I work, and this is what I do, and don't be fooled. And the person who's sitting in that crowd who goes in there thinking, I'm going to sit with the Bernie bros because mm-hmm. I'm all excited, but you know what? You're right. Yeah. Bernie's like all big picture values, yelling, screaming, corporate. But at the end of the day, socialist, Democrat, you know what? I'm going to go with a proven winner who's more moderate, more realistic, and they say, you can't go. You can't leave. But I thought this was a caucus. No. No. Cock us is what we meant.
That's...
Fuck it, it's done.
It's such a terrible system on every single metric. There's no axis in which this is a good system.
And what do you think Trump says? What do you think Trump says? The minute it happens, he comes out and he says, see, it's rigged. Setting the stage for when he loses, he won't leave the White House because it's rigged.
We're recording this mere hours before the State of the Union address, and my father and I were spitballing what might happen, and wouldn't it be just fantastic if Trump went off of script, went off of his teleprompter? But I know he won't, and he'll do just fine. But we can hope. Wouldn't it be amazing if he went off or got lost or something, and started saying shit like, see what happened in Iowa, see how our voting system is too flawed to elect a president. I think we need to stop presidential elections until we can figure out what we're going to do now. And until then, I'm just gonna keep here. I'm just gonna be the eternal leader. And shit like that has happened before in other countries and in history.
Two things that I want to tell you. He says, number one, look at this picture of the evangelicals laying their hands on me and praying. And as Bill Maher said last week in an episode, I would feel a whole lot better about Trump if when he was praying, he didn't look like he was looking forward to getting a blowjob. And this image is so funny.
Because his head is down.
When Trump looks up to the sky on the White House lawn, looks up into the sky and says, I'm the chosen one. On film.
That happened.
He says, I'm the chosen one.
W actually believed that he was.
What's that?
W actually believed that he was on a mission from God in the White House. But Trump is George W. Bush.
Yes, but Trump thinks he is God, not
exactly. Which is
he's the chosen one. He's Jesus fucking Christ incarnate.
Which I'm pretty sure is the first commandment.
JFCI.
He's breaking the first commandment. So. So you want to hear
Iowa? Fuck it, man.
In Spain, get this: they don't vote on Tuesdays. They vote like the rest of the civilized world on Sunday, where no one's working.
On Sunday.
And you know what else they do?
Simple enough.
On the Saturday before, they have what is called the Day of Reflection. And on the Day of Reflection, campaigning is prohibited. No one can campaign. Neither the candidates themselves or anyone. No one can actively do anything. You're just supposed to sit with your thoughts for a day before you go in and vote on the Sunday. Which I don't know if that's better or worse. It feels to me better because one would like to think that people think when they vote, but what do I know?
Well, it would be better if it were a day of reading rather than reflection, so they actually had something to reflect on. The idea of a caucus is, as you know, town hall meetings are all the rage, and as a form of government, a town hall meeting approach is phenomenal. It's what the country is based on. And what is astounding about our Constitution is that concept of going to a town hall meeting and taking a vote is not reflected in the Electoral College.
Right.
And so it ends up doing something. Now that the founders understood that the House of Representatives, elected by the people, small jurisdiction, so many hundreds of men and women from all over the country, was based on population.
It was men back then, but yes.
back. This is true. Popular, right? White men, excuse me.
Yeah.
You don't want to gloss over, 140 years of history. Sorry. Hey, man. I'm sorry, ladies. Don't start calling.
Okay, continue.
I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought now. See what happens?
That leather chair is really, really good for podcasting, I must say. Where it sounds like you're farting all the time.
Well, actually, it isn't the chair. I am farting all the time. Okay. I didn't know that it was coming across.
You were saying about...
You got it bad? How do you think it's in here? Not only does it sound bad, it fucking smells in here. God. You
were saying that the caucus, the founding fathers had this idea of a town hall meeting.
Oh, yes. So, but the Senate is based on geography.
Right.
So every state gets 2 senators. It's like, let me get this straight. You got, 10, 20,000 people in your state, and you get 2. And then these other guys over here, they got 1 million, and they get 2. What? Wait a minute.
Well, it's my understanding that the reason that happened was as a compromise between 2 factions that couldn't agree on how it should be, and rather than doing the reasonable, rather than doing the more rural areas, of course, wanted thought, because back then land owning was a big that's how you measure dicks as important people. It's how much land you owned. And I think they still had that concept of, well, we have all this land, so that means that we are worth more than you in these decisions, or something like that. But
so, and I think that in the historical debate, because of the negotiations that resulted in this, they ended up saying, so now that we're settled on this, how do we want to describe it? What's the narrative? What's the purpose? What's the expectation? And what they settled on was that let the House of the People, the House of Representatives, work with the entire mass of people that are there. And when they come over to this side, we're going to look at it in a much more systematic way, in a more policy level. And we're going to be thinking about the country as a whole, where you all are coming up. And so we're right. More deliberative. And in fact, they say, and they stand up tall on their haunches, and they say, we are, in fact, the most deliberative body in the world.
Ooh.
The most deliberative body in the world. After what just happened, fuck no. You are a fucking shill. You are a shill, and your day is done, and you are going to fall. You want to wait for the election?
You're talking about the Senate?
Yes, it goes Democratic. House, Senate, and the White House. Yes, because they have pissed off the wrong fucking people, which is everybody.
Well, it's
everybody,
50%,
except that 38 fucking percent that is so excited about Trump. But are we going to get mad at them? Are we going to say it's about them? We can't. If we do, there'll be a civil war.
Yeah, but didn't Congress, for all of Obama's term, Congress was also a do-nothing pile of shit. Their policy was to just say no without even thinking. And they survived the 2016 election just fine. I don't know.
Well,
the people weren't angry enough about that.
No, well, and the fact is that they weren't. And so this is the irony.
And now you think people are more angry?
They matter than hell. They matter than they've ever been. And there's more of them that are mad. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to rent a fucking truck with a loudspeaker on the back of it, and I'm going to drive up and down the streets of Kalamazoo, and I'm going to say into the microphone, get out and vote, which you'll see behind me are vehicles who are driving 20 miles an hour. Wave one of them over. They will pick you up, and when they're loaded, they will take you to a polling place. It is time to vote. Up and down the streets all day long. Everybody needs to get out and do that. We need to have the absolute. This is why, when one considers the Bernie Bros, They're the ones that are out there knocking on the doors,
Yep.
linking arms, going neighborhood to neighborhood, 5, 10, 15, 20 of them spread out. And you know what they do? They each give $12. And there are more of them, and growing and growing and growing and growing. I'll tell you, man, what Bernie says is, I'm the only one here who's got an army.
Yep.
Like Trump.
True.
The only one. The only one. This is a revolution.
So
Sorry about the chair. I'll get a new one. I
Yeah.
want a new one.
Or just don't sit.
I got this used for like $7.
Or just wear pants when you're sitting on the chair, so it's not just your bare ass making all that noise.
I'm sitting on my balls actually. They're inflated. I'm not quite sure why.
So
I appear to be sitting 2 feet up off the chair. They're really big.
I thought I'd share an idea that I heard today from our only ever podcast guest, Dr. Pudd.
Dr. Pudd.
He said
Dr. Pudd.
he said he's got this fantasy of if going before there's a big Trump rally. In the Trump rallies, it's not open to the public. They specifically handpick every one of those people that are there so that there is no dissenters possible. And his idea is to, when they're in some big arena, to have gone in the week before and climbed up in the rafters and put a speaker there that you can broadcast to remotely. And so when he's there saying something, have with your mic a mile away, say something like that's total bullshit or whatever, loud enough in the speaker.
Liar.
Yeah, exactly. Wrong. And it would take and the security there would be like, we have to find this person. We have to get this person out, and they'd be looking all around, and it would take them half an hour before they realized that the sound is coming from up there, and how the hell do we get up there? And we only swept the place for bombs.
This is Jeff's idea. It's great. It's great.
You're just trolling. You're just fucking with them.
Right.
That would be so because they would have to stop.
Now they're going to listen to the podcast, and there they go.
Yeah, well,
there they go.
All the
where will they go to find the show notes?
The schematics for how to design one of these apparatus is at happyhour.fm/046. And if you'd like us to build and send you one, you can go to patreon.com/happyhour and donate, and then we will consider doing that for you. So that's about the gist of it. I will be seeing you in 15 hours. That's pretty wild.
Okay, well, so let's go. Ciao, baby.
That does it for episode number 46. Thank you for listening. You can find the show notes at happyhour.fm/046. And if you would like to donate money to us to help us pay for the hosting and the editing, that would be at patreon.com/happyhour. Next week, we have a very special episode where Dennis and I are recording in the same room together. So don't miss that. And, as always, see you next week.